Let's begin with our next concept, which is static and instance. Variables and methods both can be static or instance. To declare a variable or method as static, you just need to use static keyword while declaring them. And when you are not defining any static keyword there, then that will be by default treat as instance. Means there's no instance keyword to declare instance variable or instance method. By default, without static keyword, variables or method will be treated as instance. Now the question is, what is the difference between static and instance and when to declare which one? So let's discuss variables first. Static variables we use to define when we want to store common property of each object, or the property which is going to be common across the class, which is going to be common for all objects. You are going to store that in a variable, and that variable you will declare as static. And when you have a property which is going to be separate for each object, then you will declare that variable as instance variable. It's pretty simple. Okay. For example, for any employee management system, employee name for each object will be different. Employee age, employee salary, these properties are going to be separate for each object. And that's why we are going to declare the variables as instance variables. Okay. And static variable, for example, you want to store company name, which is going to be common for all objects. Then you will declare company name as static variable. Now, what is the advantage of declaring like that? When you start running your program, and as you know, JRE will trigger, class will be start loading into the memory. Okay, all the static variables, all the variables which are declared by using static keyword are going to be stored in a common memory area. We call that class area. So static data members take place inside that class area, and instance data members will not be the part of class area. Those will only be create when you will create object. After creating the object, these instance data members will take place inside each object separately. So that's how you can save the memory. For the common properties, you don't need to declare them separately. Otherwise, you will start wasting the memory. For common properties, you can declare a variable as static and put everything inside there so that the common properties will be available to the class, and that will be take place inside the class area. So this is the reason why we need to have static and instance separate memories. Let's move to the implementation part of static and instance variables first. You can simply find all the implementations here inside this repository. I have already created different folders for each of the concepts. You can easily find all the implementations here. For example, for OOPS, we are discussing OOPS 1, and there we have the first implementation of static variables. Guys, I'm going to use very basic implementations just to make easy understanding with the concepts. Okay, but when you'll do the implementations, don't use these implementations as it is. Try to take some real world examples, try to do some real world implementations so that you can better connect the concepts with some real world applications. This is my high recommendations for you. Okay, let's move to the static variables. Now, you can see I have created a class with the name of Java class 1, and I have declared a variable as static and using static keyword. Okay. Now, because I have declared this variable as static, that means that is going to be stored in a common place class area. When program will start executing, this variable is going to take place very first time inside class area. Then main method will start, because you know main method is the first method which will start the execution. Here I am creating the objects of this class. To create the object, you always have to follow this syntax. You need to mention the class name, then you will need to mention the object name. This is actually not an object name, it's actually reference variable. I'm going to explain you this object creation or object instantiation in constructor concept. So don't worry. As of now, you just need to create the object like this. So what I did, I have created three objects of the same class. And then what I am doing, I'm trying to access that X by my object reference. I am saying system.out.println object X, object1.x. I am printing object 1.x, object 2.x, and 3.x. And this is the way I am accessing static variable using object reference. And not even object reference, but in the last statement, I am saying access by class name. I am accessing this X by using class name, by using Java class 1, right? When I am running this, you can see I am able to access this X either by class name or by object reference. So in short, static variables are the variables which are common for all the class. Static variables will take place inside memory container called class area at the time of class loading itself. Static variables are the variables which will access by using class name, and those will also be able to access by using object reference. This is about static data members. Now let's talk about instance variable or instance data members. Instance variables or instance data members are the data members which will be accessed by using objects, because instance variable take place inside the object. Okay, so I am declaring this time int x name of variable without using static keyword. That means that is going to be treated as an instance variable. When your main will start executing and three objects will be created, these objects are going to take place inside a memory container called heap. For each object, this x is going to take place separately. Means this x is going to take separate memory in first object, then second object, and then in third object. And because it is taking place inside the object, it is always accessed by using object reference. So I am accessing them by using object reference, object 1, object 2, object 3. And all these three are different because those are not taking place at common place, right? So these instance variable will always access by using object reference. You can't access them using class name. In short, instance variables are the variables which will take place separately for each object inside the heap, and those will be accessed by using object reference only. Now let's see one more implementation of both of these concepts. I have a class named employee, and in here I'm declaring a variable with the name of cname, which is of static type. Ename and salaries are instance type. Now here I am first accessing static data member cname by using class name reference and assigning some value. All the class type of variables, whether it is string or any type, will by default contain null, and numeric type of variables by default contain 0. So in this example, I have this static variable where I am accessing this and printing the value of company name. Initially, by default, it was containing null, but I am assigning some value and accessing it by using class name because it's static variable. And then I'm printing the value of company. Then again, I'm instantiating the class two times. I'm creating two object of employee class. And then because I'm creating two object, after creating the objects in heap, ename and salary will take place separately for each object. So if I want to access employee name of first employee, I will access the reference of first object and will assign some value there, because by default that is containing null because that's of string type. And salary, I'm assigning some value for the salary, right? Now I'm printing employee 1 name, salary, and employee 2 and employee 2 salary. And when you run this, you will find that for employee 2, because I didn't make any change there, by default the name and salary will be null and 0. And for first employee, you will find the name and the employee salary will be 50,000. And for the company name will be the C name, which will be the same for both of the objects. And I'm accessing this by using class name even. So you can see I am printing company name here. I am seeing that I am making changes for the employee 1 name and the salary. Salary I am actually making employee salary for the employee 2 object, not for the employee 1. That's why it is coming as 50,000. So these instance variables will be changed for the object only by which you are making changes. But static variables can be changed or accessed by using objects or by using class name. But once you will make changes, the changes will be the same for across the class. For example, if I'll print the company name with the with first employee, company name for employee 1 company name, and I am saying here employee 1 CNAME, and similar to that, if I am printing company name again for another object, employee 2, you will find that company name will be the same. You can see employee 2 company name is same and employee 1 company name is same. And now let's suppose if employee 1 is making changes, company name as TCS, then that company name will be changed for both of the objects. You can see for first object, before the first object before the assignment I was printing company name, that's why it was HCL, but then after it's TCS. If after the changes, if you'll print the company name, that will be common for both of the objects. So static variables, because those are taking place at common place, if are going to be changed by any other object of the class, the changes will be the same for entire class. Okay, but static variables usually we will access by using class name only. However, you can access them using object reference, and instance variables will be changed by that object only, and that object which is making changes in the instance variable, that variable will be changed for that object only. So this is how these two static and instance variables are used, and you have to decide that which is required for your requirement for your application, and then only you will create or take the decision that which type of variable you need to create.